So good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining the Real New York Quarter 3 2025 Landlord Forum. As always, we're lucky to have you here with us. My name is Robert Romani, and I'm the co-founder and principal of Real New York, alongside my partner here, Louis Adler. And over the year, we've had the privilege of speaking with the Ting Padka and Ashley Dukas of Adler and Stachenfeld back in April's Landlord Forum about the opportunities of the City of Yes and the 485X program, as well as Mayor Eric Adams about the rezoning investment opportunities in NYC back in July. We're thrilled here to keep our conversation going and bring our listeners valuable insights on one of the most talked about trends, residential conversions. Our discussion today will include a wide variety of behind-the-scenes topics, including the process of NYC real estate conversions, incentives to convert, which buildings are better for conversions, and more. We are very excited to have our guest speaker here today, Stephen Handy. Stephen Handy is an accomplished senior architect and project manager at S9 Architecture, where he brings over 15 years of experience shaping the urban fabric through innovative, context-driven design. With a career that spans leadership roles at renowned firms such as Gensler and SLC Architects, Stephen has contributed a broad spectrum of high-impact projects, from adaptive reuse and multifamily housing to a large-scale commercial and cultural developments. S9 is a design and architecture firm that develops innovative designs for each site to leverage its prominent location and unique spatial challenges, with the end result being invigorating in the area's architectural landscape. We are fortunate enough to work with Stephen on a very exciting conversion on 42nd Street that we will discuss later on this call. And before we turn over the mic to Stephen, Louis and I are going to go over a little bit of the 2025 rental market and what we just experienced in the summertime and the trends we're seeing over the last few months and what we expect to see over the next few. So to jump into that, right now we are way past the summer market. We're sitting here towards the end of October and should be preparing more on the defensive side as landlords and brokers. The New York City rental market continued to grow from 24 to 25 this summer, but really only by a small increase. We saw about a 1 to 2% increase in rents overall. And when you zoom in, certain neighborhoods and certain submarkets did outperform others. So we'll jump into that. The neighborhood that I call home and that I'm most excited about right now is a old neighborhood, but it's having a renaissance. The Upper East Side, it's definitely seeing a rise in rents and demand, especially in the Yorkville pocket. The 80s is coming really coming up, and on Second Avenue, the restaurants and establishments coming there is something that even the Wall Street Journal found very exciting. And I don't know if you guys saw the article recently, but they're asking, when did the Upper Side become cool? So that's something we're very excited about. Similarly, we've seen a little pop in the Upper West Side, and the East Village and the West Village continue to dominate downtown with young renters. We're very excited about what we're seeing in Brooklyn. Overall, across the borough, rents have increased a bit. But again, when you zoom into Williamsburg and Greenpoint, we see rents climbing and we see the neighborhood winning tenants from NYC every month. One big shift we experienced over the last 3 to 4 months was the FAIR Act, which went into effect, which, as a reminder to everyone, forced landlords to pay broker fees and distinguished or eliminated the tenant paid model. What we noticed and what we found right away was an increase in rents, especially in the West Village and neighborhoods that were historically tenant paid. The rents shot up a bit. We did see an increase in rents across the board, and it was a nice shot in the arm. But we're again now past the summer rental market, and going into the fall, we have seen rents soften. Lou and I have been doing this for 14 years now. We're not surprised when rents drop 10% month over month, especially for share apartments, 3 and 4 bedrooms. You just want to get them off the shelf right now. You want to get them into a summer expiration date. And that's what we're looking at across the board, 16 to 18 month leases, maybe put a month free on it and get it into that April to August cycle. As a rule of thumb, I always like to say you should have about 70% of your expirations come up between May and July, May and August. That will keep your rents high and your vacancy low. Uh, and one more sub-market that Lou and I are spending a lot more time in these days and working on is the new development pipeline. So the new developments that we're seeing out there are mostly right now 99 units and less. That's what makes sense. And aside from the conversion projects we are working on, we're working on a few different 99 unit or less projects. And those new developments are continuing to see new highs. Where we used to get $100 a foot, we're now seeing $120 a foot. Where we used to see $120 a foot, it's now $140 a foot. So we're seeing a big demand for new development rentals, and we do expect that to increase and continue with the lack of supply coming. Now, before we jump into our main topic and interview with Stephen, I wanted to quickly give a shout out to Herschel Torkian, who owns the Torkian Group and is a landlord developer himself. I'm going to give him the mic so he can discuss what he is up to tomorrow morning with Andrew Como and his event for tomorrow morning. Forgive me, guys. I think Herschel's having some technical difficulties, so we're going to I'll just bring up basically we sent a flyer out and we'll resend another flyer out after this call in regards to the event that Herschel is throwing and hosting tomorrow morning. It's at the Solari building on West 33rd Street. And tomorrow morning, Herschel will be having a chat with Andrew Como and discuss the mayoral race. And everyone on this call is invited, and we will share that flyer again once this call is finished. So let's jump into our interview. Lou, I'm gonna kick it to you and let's go into it. Stephen, thanks again for joining.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Stephen, I really appreciate it. I guess just to start it off, if you could briefly walk us through your background and experience in working in some of these conversion plays.
Sure. So my background, as Robert said, been an architect for roughly 15 years. Most recently, for almost 4 or 5 years now, been heavily involved in the office to residential conversion space. For me personally, that started with a multinational architectural firm before I joined S9, where I had the opportunity to lead as the senior architect and project manager of a almost 600 unit, 550,000 square foot conversion down in the financial district, which I believe just started seeing people occupy in the summer of 2023. And I believe now it's fully opened. I don't know what level of occupancy it is at, but it is one of those projects that has been heavily publicized. Most recently, I've been with S9 for the last 2 years. We there was a bit of a slowdown in the conversion space, I'd say, for at least for us for about 12 months, largely as there was some hesitancy from Albany regarding various tax programs. I think we're all used to when there is rumors of an impending program, development tends to slow down. But as those programs got finalized, we started to see an uptick of inquiries. Currently, for us, that's meant a lot of studies, and for the office right now, currently three ongoing in development projects in varying stages. some with DOB review and construction right now, and others in early schematic and design development phases.
Mhm. When a landlord reaches out to you or a developer reaches out to you and says they're looking at a conversion play, what would you say the ratio of, I imagine there's a lot of planning before the execution, right? Of even moving forward with you on hand as the architect. But how many different conversion plays are you looking for that aren't coming to fruition?
Oh man. Um, I'd say I feel like it's much lower. I'll put it this way. It's low enough that I have studied personally the same building multiple times for different developers.
Yeah.
It's you see a building, then it's come around again 6 months later for a different client of ours. Um,
And
yeah.
do you think that happens more often than when somebody sends you a development site?
Oh yes, certainly. There because of there's a lot of mechanisms that go into and a lot of unknowns in conversions compared to new development. There is the current tenants of the building that is an unknown. There is the current debt structure of the building, which can change which can change at a moment's notice if the current owner is able to get a refinance package, which can change their underwriting, which will change what they need to get out of the building.
Mhm.
Um, Obviously, there's inflationary pressures that every developer is facing, and we don't always know what that's going to mean. So these are all things that developers are dealing with.
Yeah, and one thing I've noticed over the last 12 months is that the decision is tougher with the office market coming back a bit. So I'm curious, how many studies have you done or started the process, and then a developer or an owner says, you know what, I'm just going to keep it office. Rents are starting to make more sense these days.
So that definitely happens. I think more often than not, what we're seeing is development is a long it's a long game, right? So we may do a study for a building that is partially occupied, and the developer has a decision to make, and that is, do I do a deal with my current tenants to cut their leases short, or do I then, okay, I've got this study and I can sit on it, and I know in 3 or 4, 5 years these are my options, and then I just let the current leases slowly expire, and then I can make a move on the project. Um, the additional reality is even if any developer decides, it does depend on the size of the project, that says they want to convert an office building starting today. By the time they sign up their consultants, design drawings happen, permitting, we go through DOB review, you are at least looking at a bare minimum of, best case scenario, 1 year to 16 months of design and permitting anyway. So, all of that has to be factored in, into the timeline of any developer's project.
Yeah. And at Real New York, we're currently working on a hospital to resi, an office to resi, a hotel to resi, and an office to resi. Well, multiple office to resis. What are you seeing most often the conversion play? What creates the best layouts? What gets you the most excited when
Sure.
the deal comes your way?
For us as an office, as far as as an office, I think S9 is a firm. As a firm, we're 15 years old, and I think one of some of our most published projects are definitely the adaptive reuse projects. In New York, that includes Empire Stores down the Brooklyn waterfront, Pier 57, um, and more broadly speaking, Pond City Market in Atlanta, Newhoff in Nashville. But for the conversion, in the multifamily for us, it's mainly been the office to residential conversions. That is not necessarily something we seek out. It is something that people bring to us.
Mhm.
Um, you know, it's it is no secret, I think, that the pre-war buildings convert a little bit easier. They tend to have smaller floor plates. You'll hear, or if you've read, the numerous articles, and I know I had the opportunity to actually advise the New York Times on like one of their online articles where they did like a big infographic study on trying to present what the architects actually look for. The older buildings convert a little bit easier because they were developed before a time before modern heating and air conditioning and lighting, so they tend to have smaller floor plates.
Mhm.
The more modern buildings, we're talking about our buildings that were developed in the 70s and the 80s, they tend to have deeper floor plates, which are more challenging to convert when you think of them comparable to new construction.
Yeah, and I think that that goes to our next question. Like, how do you approach like the structural MEP constraints?
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that we're so like to your point, Rob and I are looking at more conversion plays and than we are new developments now, because that's just what our landlords and developers are finding most intriguing. And we're seeing these deep layouts, we're seeing these home offices, we're seeing a building of, most efficient layouts of, 300, 600 square foot studios that should be the size of a one bedroom. Like from your
Sure.
perspective, like what are the design challenges, unique to conversions?
So the the first design challenge, and I could share a diagram that we typically look at, is really does come down to the depth of the floor plate. Typical new construction for a market rate project, we would look at a unit from the back wall of the unit, meaning the corridor, to the windows of a depth of around 30 feet. Um, there's a number of reasons for that, but that is typically the depth of a typical market rate unit. So but your typical office plate may be in this study here. You can see with this side core.
It's not shared,
Oh,
Steve, but
sorry,
we're seeing that.
wrong screen. I apologize.
Well,
So you may see here on this diagram, this floor plate here, because of the positioning of the elevator, this floor plate is over 80 feet deep. Measured from the avenue, which is on the bottom side of the page, all the way back to the elevators. So that is the first constraint we have to overcome. And what we've looked at as a firm is sort of like developing these floor plans and our understanding really from as zones. That first 30 feet is comparable to new construction. The next 10 to 20 feet as that middle zone, and really beyond that becomes this zone that's much more difficult. That middle zone is an area where we think of this as a zone where we can start to plan in items like home offices. We find that these are, especially as work from home has become a more and more desirable option for a lot of people and a benefit. This is a prime location for this type of space. But as you get beyond that 20 feet, the quality of light that is able to enter the unit, the depth of that unit really becomes a hindrance to to the quality of space that we can create. So, one of the solutions that we've worked with in different projects is to actually try to use that middle space to create to place the amenities. So rather than have like a large centralized amenity floor, something we've explored doing is having, stacking the amenities on multiple floors throughout the building to take up these large voids. And then, for us, something we like to do is try to always connect these amenities with interior stairs. So while they might be, slightly smaller spaces, we are able to then connect them with something like an interior staircase. So it does feel like a singular large connected amenity space.
Yeah, in like
That's
I know.
very
Apologies, Rob. In cities like Chicago, they rezoned where a home office could be a legal bedroom.
Yes.
Have you heard of any momentum in New York? I mean, with these floor plans popping up more and more, man, that would be
Right.
helpful.
So yeah, I've not heard of. I do know that in cities like Chicago, Toronto, obviously outside New York, Philly, DC, they do allow this notion of, they call it borrowed light, where
Mhm.
if something like an interior room has a window onto, say, a living room that has natural light, that is now a legal bedroom. New York does not allow for that. So these are legally home offices. There are certain restrictions as far as you cannot have a closet in a home office, you cannot have an ensuite bathroom in a home office, and there are restrictions on the amount of floor area that a home office is allowed to take as part of the entire floor area of a unit. Um, so these are all things we have to deal with as architects. We're all architects are aware of it, but I
Mhm.
have not heard. I've heard quips come out of the current mayor's office, but nothing official.
Yeah, we've heard similar, but one thing when Rob and I are looking at these layouts, we're always trying to find out how to make these home offices as livable as possible.
Sure.
Just in case someone decides to spend a little more time in it than
Hmm.
they would a home office. Anything creative you've seen? Like we would first off, we always recommend individual climate control. Like if the MEP allows for it,
Hmm.
fans, higher ceiling height. Can you do a transom? Stuff
Sure.
like that.
So
Yeah,
something,
I'm really into like cove lighting or just some sort of different lighting, so it kind
yeah.
of makes the space more warm. Yeah.
So something we try to do as a firm, the first thing we really try to do is focus on creating a really clean layout, which I hope you can identify on screen here. So it is a push and pull and a compromise between architects, developers, and the various other design consultants like structural and MEP on the necessities of a project. We try to put a lot of effort into designing our units to be really clean. And what I mean by that is to have really clean walls and really organized, like, so where the walls are aligned and the units appear to be very much organized, and an organized procession where you enter your unit, you have a nice foyer space with a coat closet, um, and then you have a nice procession into your living area. We find that really helps create a really calming sense in the unit. Additionally, we've explored items. Might be a little hard to see here on the plan, but in the location of, say, this home office where it is adjacent to the living room, putting in like a corner window, kind of
Mhm.
similar to you might see in a true like commercial, in a true office setting, right? But putting in that borrowed light element, which right, if you were in Chicago, this sort of element allows that to be a legal bedroom.
I
So
love that. I
so
haven't seen that before.
so working that into our New York projects to try to elevate them, beyond the bare minimum.
Mhm.
That makes sense. I mean, and you mentioned the amenities.
Hmm.
I think, especially after I walked 25 Water Street last week, and to see what a 1,500 unit conversion looks like, and the amenity package that's in there, and how they reposition the building to make it feel busy, but at the same time not too busy with 1,500 apartments in there. I'm seeing. I feel like that's a big way to unlock some of these buildings and make them more livable. Just the amenities, the programming, the lobby. You have to be a lot more intentional with the flow of the building, I want to say.
Sure. That is 100% true. The scale of a commercial building is not always that of what you might do at the onset if you were doing a new residential building. So, this image you see here on the screen is the is one of S9's designs for the renovation of an existing commercial lobby for residential use. The existing lobby now is a large monolithic space that is designed to move people in and out. And so what we've tried to do is we're taking that existing space here and we're trying to break that down into a more human scale, which is really emblematic of a residential use. For our projects, and a lot of this is, a bit of it is dependent upon the developer and a bit of the project, right? Some projects, I think, and some buildings will naturally have a lot of space that simply, because of zoning, because of building code, the space is not, you cannot have dwelling units in that space. So it simply comes down to what is the highest and best use for that remaining space. And so that will naturally lead towards items like retail. Maybe it is to leave some commercial use in the building, or it is amenities. What we're seeing on several of our projects is actually to attempt to reduce the amount of amenity space. So a little bit of a different direction than the 25 Water Street project. But what we are attempting to do in that approach is to design amenity spaces that are truly multifunctional. So it is a lounge slash co-working space that during the day it is a co-working space, but at night can transition into a type of lounge space. And that can be done something with as simple as lighting, right? During the day it has very cool white bright lighting, so it's for co-working. But at night the lights can dim, it gets a little bit moodier, and it brings on more of a lounge type vibe.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. I think that lobby is the project we're working on together
It,
on 42nd.
yep, you recognize it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Apologies, don't mean to go back, but do you mind pulling up a floor plan where there's maybe more than one home office?
Oh, sure.
I think it'd
Yes.
be good for our audience to understand this trend that's coming our way because it is so unique and so different from what we have in today's housing stock.
Sure thing.
So, Lou and I are working on a few projects, including with Stephen, where we are building these apartments because of the depth and because of the lack of light and air easements. There is enough space to, we're always looking to build the highest and best use and get the highest rent. And there's enough space where you are ending up with two home offices, in some cases, three home offices. I go back to 25 Water Street. 25 Water Street, only two sides of the building have legal light and air. The other two sides, although they have windows, don't have legal light and air. So what you'll see there and what you'll see here on this floor plan is a floor plan that looks like a two-bedroom or looks like a three-bedroom, but us on the brokerage side and the marketing side legally can only call it a studio. And what we're now starting to see is a $9,000 studio being marketed on StreetEasy. When you click on the ad and you click on the floor plan, you see that there's home offices there, two or three home offices. But this is kind of the what's coming our way with these conversions, and you have to ask yourself who's the tenant base living in these home offices, and what's the profile that we are attracting. And I'd say it depends on different neighborhoods, of course. What I noticed at 25 Water is a very young tenant profile, which I understand would be better, more accommodable to a windowless bedroom, and potentially a baby's room, of course, a home office. So I think this is going to be something that we look back on and say, and you'll see this is why we're having these interior bedrooms. And sorry, one more thing I'd like to throw in there is when we're comparing to a new development, and the price per foot, as I mentioned earlier, a one bedroom now in a prime neighborhood or really anywhere below 96th Street, we're looking at 130, one bedroom is 120 a foot, studio is about 130 a foot. And they're climbing, as I mentioned, closer to 140 a foot. Here, on these conversions, we're penciling anywhere from, I would say, 100 to 120 a foot. So we're still seeing a really nice um, return there, and the gap is closing, but you're getting essentially 20% more square footage for the same price as a new development in these conversions. So, Stephen, where are you seeing most of these conversions at the moment?
For us as an office, we're seeing a lot of action in Midtown. And when I say Midtown, I'm really meaning 42nd Street and north. We're definitely seeing a pickup in the Midtown East area, but even as far north as 57th Street. For us as a firm, I don't think we've seen recently anything north as an office north of 57th Street. But my experience, a bit before, definitely on this, as far as studies were concerned, we've studied buildings all the way up, Third Avenue,
Yeah.
up to 72nd Street.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. I believe Maclo just bought a conversion site on Madison Avenue, so you're seeing it kind of creep into the luxury space as well.
Mm-hmm.
But even also going west, 5 Times Square is an exciting project. I believe 1,200 units coming up in the middle of Times Square. You have the another property on West 42nd with Yellowstone that's being developed, and I find that I find it so intriguing to reimagine these neighborhoods that were always commercial, always office, kind of turn off after 6, 7 o'clock at night. And now, if you just speaking about that one sliver on 42nd Street where the Pfizer building is, Pfizer headquarters being redeveloped by um, Metroloft and Nathan Berman, alongside one or two other properties and the one we're working on. I believe that's over 2,000 apartments coming online. And, that's equivalent to 4 or 5 blocks in Chelsea. And we saw this happen a little bit in Financial District back in the early 2000s, right after 9/11, a neighborhood where, again, you would go in and there was no work, live, eat, play, all that. But now it's definitely developed and it's gone a long way. Do you see that happening here in Midtown East and 42nd Street? And where do you see for the future of those neighborhoods?
I mean, I think it's only natural that those neighborhoods are going to keep growing. I think the big thing, I think every that was in the real estate community, whether as a broker, a developer, an architect, was when we were involved in projects in FIDI was, will it ever become this a 24/7 community? And I think we're all happy to say that it has, but that did take time. It took time for the building, and to get enough people and enough density of residents for then the ancillary amenities to show up that were outside of the buildings, right? Because we know some of the development projects will have private amenities, but what makes a neighborhood is not necessarily the private amenities. It is going to be the restaurants, it will be the local gym, it'll be the grocery stores, it'll be all these other items that are really basically at the first floor of all these other buildings. There's no reason that can't happen in this neighborhood. I think this neighborhood, especially something like Midtown East, is set up exceptionally well for it because it has great transportation already. Obviously with the expansion of Grand Central, with them bringing in the Long Island Railroad, is a great piece of that. With all the new office buildings going up there, is will be another addition to the neighborhood, to really create that 24/7 walkable, scalable neighborhood. So there's no reason that area just it can just continue to grow. And then on top of that, with all the new office buildings being constructed, there's the city has seen a flight to quality in the office
Mhm.
space.
Yeah.
So that does seem to follow. Then there should be more office space, available office space for these kind of projects coming online as those new office buildings are completed.
fully agree. And one other note we want to throw in there is Um, if we had to bet with potential, next mayor that's coming to New York, we do believe there may be, and we're kind of hearing more of a desire to walk to work, maybe take the subway a little bit less, and again, that being, these neighborhoods being so close to the office, and really the office is next door, the return to work and return to office trend continuing. We think this is just kind of the timing is perfect.
Hmm. Agreed.
Do you have any favorite projects, Stephen, that you've worked on and you want to mention, or any really challenging ones where you were able to kind of
Well,
figure out that Rubik's Cube?
well, I mean, the look for me personally, the challenging one was the most challenging one was the first one, because I came from a background before I got involved in conversions. I had a background of doing over a decade of large multifamily projects, primarily in New York City, but it was exclusively in new construction.
Hmm.
Um, and so, you build up a set of skills and understanding of things. But conversions, you are learning something new with every conversion. And with conversions, you don't know what you don't know until you get into it.
Yeah.
Um, and it is a bit of a Rubik's cube. We kind of you you have drawings. You do as much investigative work as you can, but once the demo starts happening is when the real work starts happening. So you do bunch of design work, and then you got to be ready to change it at a moment's notice because you finds out a beam is not where you expected it to be. So these projects for me personally are exceptionally intellectually curious. They keep you on your toes, and so it's always the next one because you just don't know what you're going to find.
Any huge pitfalls you've experienced that you can make sure our team doesn't experience in the future?
I think the pitfall is, when you're assessing these from a development perspective, I think my experience just as, and this is just as an architect, is there is an optimism about how much of especially on the MEP systems, about what can be reused. Um, Office building MEP systems are not residential MEP systems. They are oftentimes centralized for an office building, where residential they're centralized and then they branch off, maybe to a few tenants on a floor. Where a residential building, like the project we're working on together, has might have 26 tenants on a floor, which each need their own individual bathroom and own individual kitchen. Where when it was an office building, it had maybe two tenants on the floor, right? So, and then oftentimes these buildings, one of the reasons they're being considered for a conversion is because the building may need a significant amount of upgrades already. The building probably is of a certain age, which means the MEP systems are of a certain age. So I think I have seen it on more than one occasion where there was an assumption that the MEP system had a lot of life left in it. We could reuse a lot of it. And as the project went on, it just turns out that that was the incorrect assumption. And that obviously is a cost, right? That's why it's a pitfall.
I guess my next question, if you had to guess moving forward the percentage of projects you're going to be working on their conversion versus new development,
Oh. Hmm.
state of the market, what would it be?
Um, well, for our office, you know, we're a bit unique. Where I think probably 50% of our work is local within New York, and 50% is outside of the city. Um, Conversion wise, I don't think you don't see a lot of conversions outside of New York because the economics are just not there.
Hmm.
Um, Within New York, I don't know, for our office, like even maybe now it might be 20-25% of what we're doing, which is not an insignificant piece of our local profile. So it's I think, and there's firms that do this more often. There's firms that do this less often. But as a multidisciplinary firm, this is this is a part of what we do. It's not the only thing we do.
Thank you. Stephen, this was great. Really appreciate it. I know our
Hmm.
landlords and developers do as well. We'll definitely circulate your contact information for everyone that's looking at a
Appreciate it.
round up or conversion play. And if there's any way we can be of assistance along the way, don't hesitate.
I mean, I know we'll be in touch in the future. But yeah, this has been great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, everyone. This will probably be our last landlord forum by the end of the year, but you never know. We'll see if Cuomo wants to show up last minute.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Stephen.
Take care.